Roosevelt's first priority after his election was to deal with massive unemployment. A public works program was started. The government financed projects to build highways, bridges, and dams. The National Recovery Administration was set up to revitalize industry. Roosevelt wanted to see America move into a new era. The Social Security Act was passed and other measures followed. Unemployment benefits, welfare payments, distribution of surplus food. With these measures, of course, came rules, regulations, and red tape, as familiar today as they were novel then. The government bureaucracy began to grow, and it's been growing ever since. This is just a small part of the Social Security empire today. Their headquarters in Baltimore has 16 rooms this size. All these people are dispensing our money with the best possible intentions. But at what cost? In the 50 years since the Albany...
You know what this is in modern times? This is all the federal workers, Black women specifically, that were hired to fill federal positions in DC and Maryland. These are the people that just got laid off by Trump and Elon Musk during this administration. And none of these government agencies have failed, even though they laid off 300,000 people.
We have given government more and more control over our lives and our income. In New York State alone, these government buildings house 11,000 bureaucrats, administering government programs that cost New York taxpayers $22 billion. At the federal level, the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare alone has a budget larger than any government in the world, except only Russia and the United States. Yet these government measures often do not help the people they are supposed to.
It's all right.
Richard Brown's daughter, Halima, needs constant medical attention. She has a throat defect and has to be connected to a breathing machine so that she'll survive the nights. It's expensive treatment, and you might expect the family to qualify for a Medicaid grant.
No, I don't get it, because I'm not eligible for it. I make a few dollars too much. And the salary that I make, I can't afford to really live. And save anything is out of the question. And I mean, we live from payday to payday. I mean, literally from payday to payday.
One striking change here is that in the 70s, when this was filmed, you could see every time they did documentaries and they filmed even poorer neighborhoods and black communities, they had their families intact. They were married. Even if they were not married in courts, they were in relationships and they lived together, right? That is pretty much no longer the case in today's Black America.
The struggle isn't made any easier by the fact that Mr. Brown knows that if he gave up his job as an orderly at the Harlem hospital, he would qualify for a government handout, and he'd be better off financially.
Oh, Miss Davis.
Mr. Brown, do me a favor, please. There's a section patient.
It's a terrible pressure on him, but he's proud of the work that he does here, and he's strong enough to resist the pressure.
Mr. Brown, and you're fully dilated, so I'm here to take you to the delivery room. Try not to push, please, because you want to have a nice, sterile delivery.
Mr. Brown has found out the hard way that welfare programs destroy an individual's independence.
We've considered welfare. We went to see if I'd apply for welfare, but we were told that we were only eligible for $5 a month. And to receive this $5, we would have to cash in our son's savings bonds, and that's not even worth it. But I don't believe in something for nothing anyway.
I think a lot of people are capable of working and are willing to work, but it's just the way it's set up. The mother and the children are better off if the husband isn't working or if the husband isn't there. And this
line that she just said does really pretty much not exist nowadays in general. This line no longer exists. People don't wear their hair like she's wearing. Uh, these families are no longer together today, right? Post big welfare state, the vocabulary has changed for this particular community. This right here is what you're seeing. It's quite similar to what you'd see in the Caribbean, in Africa, in South America. But today you don't see this. You don't see a hammer man that goes to work a hard days, come home to his wife and kids, a wife that is modest, fully clothed. You don't really see a lot of this.
Breaks up so many poor families.
One of the saddest things is that many of the children whose parents are on welfare will in their turn end up in the welfare trap when they grow up. In this public housing project in the Bronx, New York, 3/4 of the families are now receiving welfare payments. Well, Mr. Brown wanted to keep away from this kind of thing for a very good reason. The people who get on welfare lose their human independence and feeling of dignity. They become subject to the dictates and whims of their welfare supervisor, who can tell them whether they can live here or there, whether they may put in a telephone, what they may do with their lives. They're treated like children, not like responsible adults. And they're trapped in the system. Maybe a job comes up that looks better than welfare, but they're afraid to take it, because if they lose it after a few months, it may be 6 months or 9 months before they can get back onto welfare. And as a result, this becomes a self-perpetuating cycle, rather than simply a temporary state of affairs. Things have gone even further elsewhere. This is a Hume Estate, a public housing project in Manchester, England. Well, we're 3,000 miles away from the Bronx here, but you'd never know it just by looking around. It looks as if we're at the same place. It's the same kind of flats, same kind of massive housing units, decrepit even though they were only built 7 or 8 years ago, vandalism, graffiti, the same feeling about the place of people who don't have a great deal of drive and energy because somebody else is taking care of their day-to-day needs, because the state has deprived them of an incentive to find jobs, to become responsible people, to be the real supports of themselves and their families. For the past 7 years, Maureen Ramsey has had to buy food and clothes for her family out of a government handout. For the whole of that time, her husband, Steve, hasn't had a job. Each week, he collects what's known in Britain as Social Security. The government looks after him, his wife, and their children.
My opinion, anyway, you feel as they own you. You know, there's no other way of putting it. Say I got a job tomorrow because I needed something. Well, I know that I've got to go down there and report it, because I couldn't go into the job because you'd be looking over your shoulder thinking, oh, the Social Security's coming in, I'm going to be done for it. It's just hopeless. You can't fight against it.
This is now Great Britain, and you can see how similar these systems are. In South Africa, in Cape Town, the Cape Flats, it's another example of this particular system. So this is not only unique to the Americas. The welfare state or the welfare system, it's not only a black problem. You're seeing white people in England struggling, and I've been to London many times. I used to work there. I actually lived there for a little bit. These systems are still there to this very day. France has similar systems there too. These systems transcend race, but of course, in the U.S., the black community have been the most dependent on it politically. It's like they feed the party feeds them, so they've become more dependent on it. And you're starting to see that when these jobs dry out, a lot of these people go back to the same system. And we've seen 45 years of their data not looking good despite being on these systems. The mindset that pushes these guys also to certain ideologies on the internet, it's not going to support them once the rug is put from underneath them. The rug, in this case, being welfare.
It's up with about £39. So what good is he working? When you still get the same thing, you know what I mean? I can't see any sense of it.
Of course, he's quite right that it may not pay him to get a job now. That's not his fault, and I don't blame him. He's acting sensibly and intelligently for his own interest and the interest of his family. It's the fault of a system which takes away the incentive from him to get a job. But suppose you were cruel and simply took away the welfare overnight, cut it off. What would happen? He would find a job. What kind of a job? I don't know. It might not be a very nice job. It might not be a very attractive job. But at some wage, at some level of pay, there will always be a job which he could get for himself.